I really feel that a lot of us don't take into account trauma. And we don't take into account when we're co creating that we could possibly be misunderstood. That you, as a loving chosen one that only seeks to put out love, every now and then trauma seeps through and we're misunderstood. Hi, welcome to Earth Angel Activities, where I will be channeling a message for you guys tonight. Tonight is going to be more chill, laid back vibes. I'm outside, so you're going to see bugs and stuff flying around. I've been receiving this very clear message for the past few days of dealing with shadows, your shadow side, healing triggers. That's been a big one. One thing that I have noticed about trauma and triggers and how they show up between us is that a lot of times, oftentimes, many times, not every time now, but a lot of times, people are not trying to trigger you. People are not trying to touch you in the worst part of your soul or in a guarded area of your soul. You know, when you get into a space where someone is intentionally triggering you and their goal is to intentionally make you feel as if an aspect of you is true or not true and it doesn't align with what you know to be true. Now we are moving into spiritual gaslighting. One thing about the shadow that we tend to overlook is that co-creative aspect of the shadow. You know, we have the aspects of the shadow where we understand, like, oh, I need to look at myself. I need to look at, the things about me that I hide, that I don't like, that I like to share. That's only like one chip off the iceberg of shadow work. God is showing me like students. So I'm seeing like students that are learning how to build cars. They're in mechanic school, and I'm seeing students who are in medical school, and I'm seeing students who are in contracting school. It's like at some point, even as the student, before you gain that little piece of paper, there comes this point where you must start to show proof of the things that you know. And this thing is coming before the graduation. When it comes to forgiveness, it literally reminds me of the phrase, for to give to you. And that to me is saying to stay in flow. If I can forgive, then I can stay in flow. Now, where the issue comes in with forgiveness is that when there is trauma, I really feel that a lot of us don't take into account trauma. And we don't take into account when we're co creating and interacting with one another that we could possibly be misunderstood. That you, as a loving chosen one that only seeks to put out love, the energy of comfort, the energy of compassion, grace, to be a conduit of God, to pray that God flows to you and through you. These are the things that you earnestly desire when you go out into the world, when you interact with people, your family, yourself. But every now and then, trauma seeps through and we're misunderstood. Anger and sadness are arguably two of the most misunderstood emotions ever. Because when someone is behaving through the shield of sadness, when someone is behaving through the shield of anger or disappointment, it's always multi-layered. It's always more complex than what we're seeing. And sometimes some situations are designed to show us where we are. Because sometimes you can win and actually lose. Sometimes you can be right and actually be wrong. especially if the energy is calling for unity more than it's calling for your factual whatever, you know. And when it comes to the way we interact with one another, that shadowy aspect of co creation, it's that littering because you know someone else will pick it up. It's trashing a public bathroom because you don't have to clean it up. It's walking past certain things because you didn't do it, you know? But then it's also walking past certain things because your energy is low, because you're too depressed to notice things to be grateful for or how you can fit in into society, you know, and your angels are seeing this, you know, as sometimes your heart is broken and you're moving through the world trying to give as much love as you can. If you haven't resolved the filter through which you see the world, then a lot of interactions could inevitably be miscommunications. So, when it comes to dealing with the shadow self, you know, especially with conflict is one of those things that will really help to reveal to you where you are as far as spiritually. What things in your soul are still coming out when your cup is tipped over, when the cup of you is disturbed or disrupted. What's coming out? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it pain? Is it judgment? Because if it is, it's fine. You know, it's pointing at the work of healing that needs to be done. That pain is pointing more so at what you need to give to yourself more than how you need to look at others. And it can be so difficult, especially when you feel as if someone has intentionally wronged you. You know, but I'm really getting that energy of Jesus and Judas, and how Jesus was unshaken. You know, he still, there was no amount of betrayal, there was no amount of suffering or pain that was going to deter him from being the loving energy that he was created to be. You know, and no, I don't still consider myself to be a Christian, but those are still conceptual stories that I still hold very dear, very close to my heart, because that type of love is what we should literally all be aspiring to, you know? And there are so many other religious groups that have a beacon of love that shows us how we really should be interacting with one another, but we struggle on this level, and it is really stemming from the trauma, the pain, the hurt, the being misunderstood, the feeling of feeling unheard or feeling ignored or feeling that your place is not fully established. But all that is shadow work. And when we all delay self reflection, that art of sitting back to figure out ways to self improve, be it so that you can have a more rich and fulfilling life and quality of life within your very being. You know, because some of the most traumatic battles are fought within our mind space, our mindscape. So when we come to these spaces of healing, it's good to give yourself a pat on the back. Shadow work does not work unless you're able to celebrate yourself and celebrate your accomplishments, celebrate your goals, celebrate the times every time that you passed something spiritually. A couple of years ago, I was having a really difficult self reflection, and I was feeling like I could have handled things differently. I was dealing with heartache, betrayal, money. It was just so many things that were tied into that one situation, and I felt so hurt around it. And I just remember the Holy Spirit telling me so vividly that you didn't fail. Because I just was telling myself, like, I failed, I failed, I failed. You know, I could have done better. I try to do better, but I'm not, like that kind of, self defeating talk. And I rebuke that. Like, we don't talk like that to ourselves. We do not speak to ourselves that way. Just like it's something flying around in here right now because I'm outside, so my little barricade isn't working as well as it was earlier in the day. But even that within itself is showing me that when your light is shining, it's gonna be bugs. Your light is going to attract bugs, especially at night. Especially at night. You will be a beacon for so many people, and you just have to know this. You just have to trust this. And when it comes to those difficult self reflections, those difficult meditations where you are realizing or acknowledging the fact that there's still room for growth, don't cancel yourself out. You haven't failed. That's what the Holy Spirit was telling me. Like, don't count yourself out. You didn't pass with an A, but you didn't fail. Okay, you got about a C this time, and it's okay. All right, and I really had to accept that spiritually because the way we perceive our growth has a lot to do with our level of pain tolerance spiritually. And when we start to hold that type of space for our brothers and sisters, knowing that most of us want to do good, most of us want to love each other, most of us want to improve on a self level and a community level. Most of us really do. The only thing that's holding us back, a lot of us back, is trauma. And trauma, one word that I keep hearing the Divine Mother whisper to me, it's visceral. Visceral. Like the pain, the thoughts, the memories, the happiness, the relationships and connections and things that we value. It's so very visceral. And that the healing is going to be just that expressive, just that visceral. Excuse me, but it comes to this place where we really have to see ourselves emotionally moving beyond allowing a trigger to hold us so tightly, while at the same time maintaining healthy boundaries and not allowing people to just frolic and trample through your garden of good mental health. Okay? And that's one thing that as chosen ones we have to remember, that we can't help everybody. We cannot help everybody. That sometimes the most good you can do for someone is by simply letting go. And I know that a lot of times people might misinterpret this letting go as actually holding on, because they want you to, they want you to bust a U-turn and they want things to go back to the way they were. They want family dynamics, friendship dynamics, to go back to the way they were, just because simply of nostalgia, but they have no understanding that the way things were equaled heartache for you. And that you setting healthy boundaries and changing dynamics is what has set your heart free. But I am hearing the angels say to speak more love and light and life to situations, and that if you can't speak love and light to the situations, that's still something that you need to deal with and unpack spiritually. But still, you're not failing. Don't tell yourself you're failing, Just make sure that you're really telling yourself who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. Because the reason why you do the things you do is for the divine. It's because you are a humble, loyal servant to the divine. And your trauma was part of your programming as an earth angel, part of your programming as a divine being. It was part of your programming. And it's designed that way because the one who leads, they have to be strong enough to pioneer a path. And that's what I'm seeing here. Learning how to understand your own triggers and what traumas they are surfacing from, and learning how to no longer blame the outside stimulus of the pain. Okay? Anger and pain are those things that help show you who you are. Anger and pain are those things that help to show you a part of you that needs your attention. It's nobody else's responsibility to respond to your anger. And a lot of times when we seem angry or speak in a tone that resembles anger, a lot of times it's coming from trauma, hurt, pain, feeling unheard, misunderstood. And so if you express yourself through that if you try to express yourself through that filter, you're going to constantly find yourself misunderstood, even more, further worsening what was causing the emotional turmoil to begin with. So dealing with our triggers, it's going to look a lot like quietness. It's going to look a lot like checking in with each part of your body, your eyebrows especially, shoulders, chin, okay? It's going to involve shaking a lot of that off, viscerally releasing these things. And I'm hearing them say yoga, walking, running, movement, exercise helps to viscerally break up a lot of trauma. And I'm even hearing the angels say that this is something you've already recognized and you've noticed, that on days that you work out, those thoughts don't even affect you as deeply. They don't hit you as hard. And your angels are saying it's because that physical movement, that visceral activation is actually viscerally releasing trauma from your body, allowing you to focus. And I'm seeing like a hot air balloon that's releasing sandbags, and spiritually you go up to a level where those things can't stick to you like they could on this lower vibrational level. So the physical movement, the visceral movement is going to help with the release of the trauma. Also, don't forget, the use of your spiritual gurus, your spiritual leaders, your pastors, your churches, your therapists, your friends, your family. Don't forget, and also don't forget that a lot of times spiritually, God will align you with a mentor. You got to know that, and you got to believe that, and you've got to trust that in your heart. Even when things feel on that low level where it's shadow versus light, you've got to be able to know, no matter whether it's light or dark, you've got to be able to know this is not vibrating at the frequency of love. This is just cameo. But this is not vibrating at the frequency of love. Or this is, we live in this age of light where we have our cell phones, we have our televisions, we have holographic things, devices, we have robots living in some people's actual homes now. This is an age of technology. And I'm hearing the angels say that you need to make sure that you are protecting the most important software and hardware that you have, which is your physical vessel, your physical computing machine. I'm also hearing the angels say about the light and the dark in your physical computing machine. Oh, it's so much I could get into about that. But what they're specifically saying is to be able to recognize that what you're looking at, your phone is a light worker. Your phone is a light worker. That there are different messages, different codes being sent to you that reach beyond the physical of what your eye can see. That certain light flashes and patterns of light flashes, and these are messages that are literally being sent, that you need to have downtime away from the screen, and that also time outside. That's really why I love to be outside a lot. um I'm also hearing the angels say not to please do not neglect your shadow side, because your shadow side is literally the only part of you that is able to handle unconditional love. You know, I hear people praying all the time about unconditional love and how they want it and how that's the way they love, when really most people only love unconditionally if the conditions are convenient to them. Okay, it's difficult to love when the conditions become difficult, you know, and sometimes there again, learning to set healthy boundaries while still playing your role as an agent of love, as a twin flame of the divine fire. Okay, so unconditional love, usually people don't really understand the depths of that, and for a lot of chosen ones, you've prayed, you've asked, you've cried for it, unconditional love. And so a lot of situations with these difficult conditions have presented themselves and asked you, are you still able to maintain the vibration of love even now? When it involves our children, when it involves our food, our friends, our money, our family, when it involves those things, are you able to still vibrate love? And now, love, like we've discussed so many times, love does not mean stupidity. Love is simply a reflection or a space for God to shine light on the whole thing, to shine comfort and grace and mercy on the whole thing. Does your position in the situation allow for that love to finesse the situation like it should be able to? Are you still hardened within? And if you are, that's fine. That's fine. It's just simply a starting point. If you're ready to see yourself from a space that could be a little uncomfortable, okay, a little bit of discomfort is going to help you grow. All right. So I hope that this message has found you in good vibrations and loving vibrations. All right. I hope it's been of some assistance to you at this point in your journey. If it has, let me know. If you need to get in touch with me, if you want to get in contact with me for any reason, my information is in the description. And we will talk again soon. Bye.